James Miller rubbed his tired eyes as he stared at his computer screen. The clock on his desk showed 2:17 a.m., but he couldn't stop working. His small apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of his laptop and the occasional tap of his fingers on the keyboard. Just a few more calculations, he mumbled to himself. As an astronomy researcher at the local university, James often lost track of time when studying unusual star patterns. Tonight was no different. He reached for his coffee mug, finding it empty for the third time. With a sigh, he pushed back his chair, ready to make another cup. That's when it happened. A bright blue light filled the room suddenly, making James shield his eyes. The light pulsed 3 times, growing stronger each time. A strange humming sound filled the air, and the hairs on his arms stood up as if the room was full of static electricity. What the? James backed against the wall, knocking over his chair. The light gathered in the middle of his small bedroom, swirling like water going down a drain. Then came a pop, like air pressure changing, and the light vanished. In its place stood a slender figure. James blinked, not believing his eyes. Where seconds ago there had been nothing but empty space, now stood what could only be described as an alien. The figure was clearly female, about 5 feet tall, with skin that shimmered with a light blue tint. Her large, almond-shaped eyes were deep purple, and she had no hair, just small ridges along her scalp. She wore something like a silver jumpsuit that seemed to move like liquid metal around her slim body. A small device was attached to her wrist, glowing faintly. For several long seconds, they just stared at each other. The alien's eyes widened in shock. Her mouth, smaller than a human's but with similar features, opened slightly. She stood completely frozen, like a statue, only her chest moving slightly as she breathed. James couldn't move either. His heart pounded so hard he was sure it would burst from his chest. Was he dreaming? Had he fallen asleep at his desk again? The alien moved first. She took a quick step back, bumping into James's bookshelf. Several books fell to the floor with loud thuds, making her jump. She looked around frantically, as if searching for an escape. I won't hurt you," James said, holding up his hands to show they were empty. He spoke slowly, not expecting her to understand. To his surprise, the alien tapped the device on her wrist. It glowed brighter, and she spoke in a musical language that sounded like nothing James had ever heard before. The device on her wrist hummed, then produced words in English. "This is incorrect. Not right place." The translation was choppy, but understandable. "How did you bring me here?" James shook his head. "I didn't bring you anywhere. You just appeared." The alien looked confused, then worried. She tapped her wrist device again and spoke more words. "Malfunction. Teleportation error." The device translated. She looked directly at James, her purple eyes studying his face. "You are human, Earth species." James nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm human. My name is James." The alien seemed to relax slightly, though she remained alert. "I am called Lyra. This was accident. Not meant to be here." "Where were you trying to go?" James asked, still not sure if he was dreaming. Lyra tapped her device again. "Testing new device. Short jump only." Now, she looked around the small room. Very wrong place. James took a careful step forward. "Maybe I can help you." Lyra's eyes narrowed, studying him with clear suspicion. "Humans not supposed to see us. Not yet." And with those words, James knew his life would never be the same again. James offered Lyra a chair, which she examined carefully before sitting down. Her movements were graceful but cautious, like a cat in a new home. "You're not afraid of me?" Lyra asked through her translation device. Her purple eyes scanned the room, taking in the astronomy books, star charts, and telescope by the window. James smiled nervously. "I'm terrified, actually, but also amazed." He sat on his bed, keeping some distance between them. "Are there more like you? Have you been watching Earth?" Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "The Varians, My people have observed Earth for 76 of your years. I am a junior scientist. This was my first solo test. She looked down at her wrist device with frustration. A failed test. 76 years. But we've never detected any signs of alien life. Lyra made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your technology is basic. We make sure humans don't see us. Your people are not ready. James frowned. Not ready? What does that mean? Humans are. Lyra searched for the right word. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Quick to fight. The council says humans must develop more before contact. James felt a flash of anger. That's not fair. You can't judge an entire species based on. Your people have wars. Many wars, Lyra interrupted. You fight over land, resources, beliefs. Not all of us, James argued. Most humans just want to live peaceful lives. Lyra tilted her head, studying him. This is what I was told. But perhaps, she stopped, looking unsure. You are different than what I expected. James moved closer, curious now. What did you expect? Primitive, aggressive, fearful. She looked directly at him. But you offer help instead of showing fear. Interesting. James pointed to her wrist device. Can that help you get back home? Lyra examined it closely. Damaged in transport. Needs repair. She looked up at James. I need materials. Tools. I could get some things from the university lab. James offered. I work there. Lyra stood up suddenly. No, no one else can know I'm here. The council would punish me severely for revealing myself. I won't tell anyone, James promised, but I need to understand more. If your people have been watching us, what have you been doing all this time? Lyra walked to the window and looked out at the night sky, observing, learning, sometimes guiding. Guiding? How? She turned back to him. Small adjustments. When your science moves too quickly in certain directions, we redirect. James felt a chill run down his spine. You've been holding us back, interfering with our progress. Protecting the galaxy, Lyra corrected. Humans adapt too quickly, learn too fast, create weapons from new discoveries. The council believes humans need more time to develop wisdom. James stood up, anger and curiosity fighting within him. That's not your right. Who decided that? The Galactic Council. 12 species working together for peace. Lyra's voice softened. I was taught this was necessary. But now, meeting you. She paused. I have questions too. A beeping sound came from her wrist device. Lyra looked at it with alarm. What's wrong? James asked. They've detected my location. Lyra's voice was tight with fear. A retrieval team will come. How long do we have? 12 hours, maybe less. She looked at James with uncertainty. You should report me to your authorities. Save yourself trouble. James shook his head. No. I want to know more about your people, your technology, everything you've kept from us. He reached out his hand. I'll help you fix your device, but in return, you teach me. After a moment's hesitation, Lyra took his hand. Agreed. Neither of them realized how this simple agreement would change the fate of two worlds. Morning light streamed through the window as James returned to his apartment with a backpack full of supplies. He had sneaked into the university lab at dawn, taking small pieces of equipment he hoped would help Lyra. He found her sitting cross-legged on his floor, the parts of her teleportation device carefully arranged around her. She had removed the outer casing, revealing a complex network of crystals and thin metallic wires unlike anything James had ever seen. I brought some things, James said, emptying his backpack on the table. Copper wire, circuit boards, batteries, tools. Lyra examined each item with curiosity. Primitive, but might work. She picked up a small soldering iron. This creates heat for joining metals. James nodded. Can you fix your device? Maybe. She selected a copper wire and compared it to one of her own. Need to connect these systems. As they worked, James asked questions about her world. With each answer, his amazement and frustration grew. "So your ships can travel faster than light?" he asked, holding a magnifying glass steady while Lyra connected tiny components. "Yes, we bend space." Her fingers moved with incredible precision, like folding paper to bring 2 points together. "That violates everything we know about physics." Lyra paused her work. "Your physics is incomplete." She hesitated. In 1954, a human scientist named Morris came close to discovering the principle. His research disappeared. James froze. "What do you mean, disappeared?" Lyra wouldn't meet his eyes. "The council decided it was too soon." "You stole his research." James couldn't hide his anger. "What else have you taken from us?" Lyra continued working in silence for a moment. "Clean energy, advanced medicine, space travel technology." She finally looked up. "All redirected for the greater good." "Greater good." James stood up, pacing the small room. "People are dying of diseases you could cure. We're destroying our planet with fossil fuels. How is that good?" "The council believes humans must solve their own problems," Lyra explained. "Otherwise, you might use advanced technology to spread your conflicts to other worlds." James ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "That's not fair. You can't judge an entire species based on your assumptions." "It is not just assumptions." Lyra connected another wire. "We have studied your history, your wars, your weapons. And what about your people?" James challenged. "Are the variants perfect? Never made mistakes?" A flash of emotion crossed Lyra's face. "No. We have our own failures." She seemed troubled. "But we learned from them. We need the chance to learn too." Lyra didn't respond, focusing instead on the device. After several minutes of silence, she spoke quietly. "What would humans do with faster-than-light travel?" "Explore," James answered immediately. "Learn. Meet other civilizations." "Some would," Lyra agreed. "Others would seek resources, establish colonies, perhaps even weapons advantages." James couldn't deny it. "Maybe. But shouldn't that be our choice to make? Our mistakes to learn from?" Lyra's wrist device beeped again, louder than before. She checked it, her expression darkening. "What is it?" James asked. "The retrieval team is close. 8 hours now." She looked up at him. "They will erase your memories of me." James felt a chill run through him. "They can do that." Lyra nodded. "Standard procedure for accidental contact." She hesitated. "But I don't want that to happen. You deserve to know the truth." "Then we need to leave," James said, already thinking ahead. "Get somewhere safe while you finish repairs." Lyra carefully gathered the components. "If we go, you become fugitive from your people and mine." James packed his laptop and some clothes into his backpack. "I can't unlearn what I know now, and I won't let them erase it either." Lyra studied him with newfound respect. Perhaps the council is wrong about humans after all. James drove his old car down empty country roads, glancing nervously at the rearview mirror every few minutes. Beside him, Lyra sat with her hood pulled up, hiding her blue-tinted skin and alien features from view. They had left the city 2 hours ago, heading for a small cabin that belonged to James's uncle. "Are you sure they can track us?" James asked, turning onto a dirt road that cut through thick woods. Lyra nodded, her fingers working quickly on her damaged device. "The retrieval team has sensors that detect variant technology, but forests and mountains can interfere with signals." She looked up at the trees surrounding them. "This is good." James felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. 24 hours ago, his biggest worry had been finishing his research paper. Now he was on the run with an alien, hiding from her people who wanted to erase his memories. "What are they like, these retrieval agents?" he asked. "Elite security forces, trained for off-world missions." Lyra's voice was tight with worry. "They will appear human, but move differently, more efficient, No wasted motion. The cabin appeared ahead, small and isolated. James parked behind it, out of sight from the main road. "We should be safe here for a while," he said, unlocking the door. The cabin was simple. One room with a small kitchen area, a table, 2 chairs, and a bed. "It's not much, but no one will look for us here." Lyra explored the space with curiosity, examining everyday objects as if they were museum pieces. She picked up a framed photograph of James with an older man. "Family?" she asked. "My uncle. He taught me about stars when I was a kid." James smiled at the memory. "That's why I became an astronomer." "You study stars but know so little about what exists beyond them," Lyra said, setting down the photo. "It seems cruel now." While Lyra continued working on her device, James prepared a simple meal. He watched with amusement as she cautiously tasted human food for the first time. "This is interesting," she said, chewing bread carefully. "We consume nutrition differently, more efficiently." "Do you ever eat just for pleasure?" James asked. Lyra looked confused. "Pleasure from food? Why?" "Because it tastes good, makes you happy." He offered her chocolate. "Try this." Her eyes widened as she tasted it. "This chemical reaction is unexpected." A small smile appeared on her face, the first James had seen. Pleasant. As night fell, they sat outside looking at the stars. James pointed out constellations, while Lyra told him the true names of distant suns and which ones had inhabited worlds. "Your people are so passionate," she said, watching him. "You name stars after myths and stories. We use coordinates and classification codes." "Which way is better?" James asked. Lyra considered this. "Both have value. Your way has beauty." A comfortable silence fell between them. Then Lyra spoke quietly. "The Council is wrong about humans. I see that now." Before James could respond, a distant light in the sky caught his attention. It moved too fast and too straight to be an airplane. "Is that?" "Yes." Lyra stood quickly. "Retrieval ship. They've narrowed the search." Her voice was urgent. "We must go deeper into the forest. Now." They gathered their things hastily. James led the way with a flashlight, following a narrow trail that wound between ancient trees. "If they catch us," James began. "They won't just erase your memories now," Lyra warned. "You've helped me evade capture. That makes you." She paused, searching for the word. "An accomplice." James felt fear twist in his stomach. What will they do? Lyra didn't answer immediately. "We must not be caught," she finally said. As they moved deeper into the darkness, James realized he had crossed a line from which there was no return. But looking at Lyra, this being from another world who was risking everything to help him keep his memories, he knew he had made the right choice. Behind them, the light in the sky grew brighter. Dawn broke over the forest as James and Lyra reached a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. They had walked through the night, wading through streams to hide their scent and heat signatures from Varian tracking technology. "We should be safe here for a few hours," James said, collapsing onto the damp cave floor. His legs ached from the long trek, but adrenaline kept him alert. Lyra nodded, immediately returning to work on her device. Her slender blue fingers moved with incredible precision, connecting tiny components together. "How close are you to fixing it?" James asked. "The teleportation function needs more power than I can generate," she admitted, "but the communication system is nearly operational." James watched her work, an idea forming in his mind. What if we don't just run? What if we fight back? Lyra looked up, surprised. "Fight? Against Varian technology? Impossible." "Not with weapons," James clarified. "With information. If your people have been keeping humanity in the dark, let's turn on the lights." He opened his laptop, thankful he had fully charged it before their escape. "I have colleagues, scientists who would believe me if I showed them evidence of alien contact. people in positions to spread the word quickly. Lyra's expression showed concern. The council would retaliate. They might harm your world. Would they? Really? James challenged. You said there are 12 species in this galactic council. Would all of them agree to punish an entire civilization for learning the truth? Lyra hesitated. There are disagreements among council members about Earth. Some believe contact time is near. James moved closer to her. Then let's give them a push. For the next hour, they worked together. James modified parts from his laptop, while Lyra integrated them with her Varian technology. Their hands occasionally touched as they passed tools back and forth, creating an odd but effective hybrid device. This shouldn't work, Lyra said, watching James connect wires in ways she would never have considered. It violates compatibility protocols. That's the human advantage, James grinned. We don't always follow protocols. We improvise. To Lyra's amazement, when they activated the hybrid device, it functioned perfectly. James had managed to boost her communication signal using his laptop's battery and a modified satellite uplink. See, your people understand the rules of technology, James explained. Humans are good at breaking rules when necessary. Lyra stared at him with new respect. Perhaps this is why the Council fears humans. You find solutions where none should exist. James began typing rapidly, composing emails to key scientists with attached images of Lyra and her technology. I'm sending this to trusted people first, researchers who can verify the evidence before going public. What if retrieval agents find them too? Lyra asked. They can't memory wipe everyone, James said confidently. Once this spreads, it's unstoppable. As the files uploaded, James felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Whatever happened to him personally, the truth would survive. Lyra suddenly tensed, her head turning toward the cave entrance. They're close. 3 agents, moving quickly. James hit send on the final email just as Lyra's wrist device began pulsing with red light. Too late, she whispered. They've locked onto my signal. James quickly packed up their makeshift communication device. Is there anywhere we can go? Lyra shook her head. Their ships can scan the entire region now that they're close. She looked at James with genuine regret. I'm sorry I brought this trouble to you. I'm not, James said firmly. Meeting you might be the most important thing that's ever happened to humanity. Outside the cave, a beam of bright light cut through the trees, moving systematically toward their hiding place. They're coming, Lyra said quietly. James took a deep breath. Then let's go meet them. James and Lyra stepped out of the cave into the early morning light. 3 figures stood waiting for them in the clearing. At first glance, they looked human. 2 men and a woman wearing dark gray uniforms. But their movements were too smooth, too precise. Their eyes, all the same shade of deep amber, showed no emotion. Junior Scientist Lyra, you have violated Protocol 7, the female agent said. Her voice was perfectly clear despite the distance between them. The human must be processed, and you will return for disciplinary action. Lyra stepped forward. Agent Mira, I request a hearing before the full council. The agent named Mira shook her head slightly. Denied. This situation has been classified as a security breach level 3. The 2 male agents moved to either side, creating a triangle formation around James and Lyra. Though they carried no visible weapons, James felt sure they were armed with technology he couldn't even imagine. You don't have to do this, James said, trying to keep his voice steady. We know the truth now. We've already shared information with other humans. Mira's expression didn't change. A minor complication. Those contacts will be located and processed. It's too late, James insisted. The information is spreading now. You can't erase everyone's memories. One of the male agents raised his wrist. Scan indicates 17 unauthorized data transmissions sent within the last hour. Tracing now. I've hidden the data in ways you won't find easily, James bluffed, hoping to buy time. Human computers may be primitive by your standards, but they're connected globally. Mira stepped closer, studying James with cold curiosity. This human shows unusual resistance. Interesting. He's not just resistant, Lyra said firmly. He's innovative. In less than one day, he helped me modify variant technology using Earth components, something our engineers would consider impossible. James reached into his pocket and pulled out the hybrid communication device they had built. This combines your technology with ours. I designed it in hours, not years. The three agents exchanged glances, seeming to communicate silently. This changes nothing, Mira finally said. The Council has determined humans are not ready. Ready for what? James demanded, anger rising in his voice. To join a community we don't even know exists. To access technology you've been hiding from us. Who gave you the right to decide our future? The Council protects galactic stability, Mira responded. Your species is unpredictable, dangerous. We're curious, James corrected. We explore, we learn, we adapt. Are those crimes? They are concerns, Mira said. Humans advance too quickly without corresponding ethical development. And keeping us ignorant helps our ethics develop. James laughed bitterly. That's like saying keeping a child locked in a room will teach them how to be a good adult. The second male agent stepped forward. Enough discussion. Begin memory extraction. He raised his hand, holding a small silver disc that began to glow with blue light. James felt a pressure building in his head, like the beginning of a terrible headache. Stop. Lyra moved between James and the agent. You've seen what he can do. He represents the best of humanity. Intelligent, adaptable, compassionate. Your judgment is compromised, Mira said coldly. No, Lyra stood her ground. My perspective is expanded. I've seen what you haven't. The Council is wrong about humans. The pressure in James's head increased. He struggled to stay on his feet. You've lived among them for less than 2 days, Mira said dismissively. And in that time, this human has shown more courage and innovation than many variants show in a lifetime, Lyra replied. He didn't fear me. He helped me. He questioned me. He made me see the flaws in our approach. The agent lowered his hand slightly, and the pressure in James's head lessened. Consider this, Lyra continued. If humans can achieve this much while being held back, imagine what they could contribute as allies. A tense silence filled the clearing. Then a new sound cut through the air. Helicopter rotors in the distance, growing louder. The helicopter appeared over the treetops, its rotors cutting through the morning air. Behind it came 2 more, all bearing the logo of the National Science Foundation. The Varian agents turned in unison, their faces showing the first real emotion James had seen. Surprise. Impossible, Mira said. How did they find this location? James smiled. I sent my coordinates to Dr. Rivera, my research advisor. She has connections in the government. The lead helicopter landed in the clearing while the others circled overhead. Dr. Rivera herself stepped out, followed by 4 soldiers and a man in a dark suit. James, she called out, shielding her eyes from the dust kicked up by the rotors. We got your message. The Varian agents moved closer together, hands hovering near hidden weapons. Mira spoke in a low voice. Extraction team, prepare for emergency departure. Wait, Lyra said firmly. This is the moment that matters. How we respond now will decide the future relationship between our worlds. The man in the dark suit approached, keeping a cautious distance. I'm Director Wilson, National Security Agency. We've been reviewing the data you sent, Dr. Miller. Quite extraordinary claims. His eyes widened as he noticed Lyra's blue-tinted skin and alien features, now clearly visible in the morning light. I see they weren't exaggerated. Mira stepped forward. This is a restricted interaction. Your government has no authority here. Director Wilson smiled thinly. Interesting statement, considering we're standing on American soil. He gestured to the soldiers, who had taken defensive positions. We're not here to fight, but we won't allow anyone to be removed against their will. You cannot stop us, Mira said coldly. Perhaps not, James intervened. But think about what happens next. Your secret is out now. These people have seen you with their own eyes. Dr. Rivera nodded. And we've already begun analyzing the technology samples James sent. Remarkable work, by the way. You've been studying our technology. The male variant agent asked, sounding genuinely surprised. For less than 24 hours, Dr. Rivera confirmed, and we've already identified principles that could revolutionize our understanding of quantum mechanics. Lyra looked at Mira. See, this is what I've been trying to tell you. They learn faster than we expected. Keeping them isolated isn't working anymore. A tense silence fell over the clearing. James could almost see the calculations happening behind Mira's amber eyes. The council must be consulted, she finally said. Then consult them. Director Wilson responded. But know this, we're prepared to establish diplomatic relations immediately. Or, he paused, we can continue developing what we've learned independently. Your choice. Mira raised her wrist to her mouth and spoke rapidly in the musical Varian language. After a moment, she lowered her arm. The High Council will speak with your leaders, she announced. This is unprecedented. History often is, James said quietly. As the two groups began cautious negotiations, Lyra moved to stand beside James. You planned this, she said, sounding impressed. Used our pursuit to create first contact on your terms. James shook his head. I just wanted the truth to be known. Humans deserve a chance to join the wider universe. You will, Lyra said with certainty. The Council fears change, but cannot stop it forever. Over the next few hours, a remarkable scene unfolded in the forest clearing. Human scientists and military personnel cautiously interacted with the Varian agents, while communications were established with leaders on both sides. As sunset approached, Director Wilson approached James and Lyra. We'll need representatives who understand both worlds, he said. People who can bridge the gap between our species. James looked at Lyra. Are you willing? She nodded. The Council has agreed to appoint me as official liaison to Earth. My punishment has become my position. And you, Dr. Miller? Director Wilson asked. Your country needs you. James smiled, looking up at the darkening sky where the first stars were becoming visible. A few days ago, I was studying stars through a telescope. Now I might get to visit them. Lyra's hand found his. New horizons for both our worlds. As night fell completely, the stars shone brighter than James had ever seen them, no longer distant mysteries, but future destinations in a universe suddenly full of possibilities, all because an alien girl had accidentally stepped into his room and stood frozen in shock.